integral part of the preparation for the reopening of schools on Thursday, August 15th, 2024. The community's well-being is the top priority as we approach the new year, the new school year. To update the sanitation inspections, we have Guam Education Board Vice Chair Angel Sablan and GDOE Superintendent Dr. Eric Sonson. We ask them, if you have to have your question, to please state your name and the media you're representing. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Today is our second day of our daily updates on the status of our schools until we have every one of them open. And yesterday I announced to you that we had 23 schools that are opening on Thursday, August 15th. Today I'm happy to report to you that we're adding one more school to that list. That would be Astumbo Middle School. So Astumbo Middle School was being inspected as we talked yesterday, even a few days before that. Today the superintendent got the good news that Astumbo Middle School has passed inspection. We're giving that 24-hour notice so that the school buses are informed, their division is informed, or everybody that needs to be informed is informed. And Astumbo Middle School will join those other 23 schools to open on Thursday, August 15. And as we speak, we also mentioned yesterday that there are 6 schools that are coming up for their annual reinspection. Their permits are soon expiring. So Public Health has worked with our superintendent and our deputies to ensure that we get those schools re-inspected so that there is no pause in their education or any pause in continuing those schools. And so those 6 schools that are currently being inspected by the Department of Public Health are John F. Kennedy High School, Inalahan Elementary School, Maritzu Martis Elementary School, LP Antalan Middle School, Talafofo Elementary School, and Tijan High School with its J.P. Torres Success Academy. Now, those schools are opening on Thursday, August 15, because they already have a sanitary permit. They're being re-inspected for their annual inspection, and I know that the superintendent and the deputies and our facilities management people are very, very confident that they have kept up with what needs to be done in these schools and that they will remain open. And we'll keep our finger. That means we'll continue to pray that they'll remain open, but we are fairly confident. Now, the other schools that you did not hear to open on Thursday, the students going to those schools will have an opportunity to be in a school or back to school learning by Thursday, August 22nd. Now, those plans will be discussed tomorrow at the emergency board meeting of the Guam Education Board, and immediately after that, we will release that information to the public, or the superintendent will. I just want to say that the schools that are affected, that are not opening this Thursday, the administrators and the principals of those schools already know what the plan is. And after tomorrow's board meeting, we'll release that information to the public. And certainly by Friday, everybody should know. And certainly by Friday or Thursday, the 22nd of next week, every student that requires an education on Guam in the public schools will have some form of learning. One thing that we'll stress is that although we did have an option of double sessions for these schools, except for JFK and for the Okadu high schools with Simon Sanchez and with J.B. Leon Guerrero, there'll be no other school that will be in double session. Dr. Adams, that's correct, right? So we're not going to do any double sessions. we're going to do alternate days, and we're going to do online learning. Those are the two options. When that will happen by Thursday the 22nd, but for the schools on where you're going and who you're going to be partnered with, that will be released by tomorrow afternoon, correct, Mrs.
Correct.
Schumann? Okay. So those are already worked on. Today, what we are really working on, and I asked the superintendent, are the principals excited to open the schools tomorrow? And they definitely are excited to open the schools tomorrow. So much so that they're even very happy that even today, we have more volunteers at our schools coming out to help support. I know that 4 mayors, they actually called me and said that they have their entire staff at a certain school.
Which mayors are these?
Mayor of Humatak, Mayor of Hagat, Mayor of MTM, and the mayor, you can help me out here, one more mayor. Mayor of Inalahan, okay? Their staffs are out at those schools, they're nearby schools, helping and assisting, and augmenting whatever volunteers and what other groups are there. Also, at this very moment, different agencies and departments are meeting with the SORT team, J.Q. Kanata and Dominic Munya, and of course the liaison for the governor, former Speaker Judy Wampat. They started since this morning at 9 o'clock, having every agency and department come in 20-minute intervals, meeting with them so they can find out what it is that has to be done in the schools that they are assigned to. I asked Dr. Wampat to give me the update, but she's not going to be done with any of that until past 4 o'clock this afternoon, so we'll give you that update tomorrow. If you want us to give you a listing of what agencies and departments are assigned or adopt what schools, we'll have that available tomorrow. Yes. I know from my department, I can tell you right now that it's JQ San Miguel that we are adopting, and that's Department of Parks and Recreation. We actually adopted CL Titano because that was our school prior to yesterday. But we've been given another school, and we're happy to move on to another school because CL Titano, I believe, has other agencies assigned to it. But, and as far as procurement of the materials and supplies, I think by tomorrow, we will have those purchase orders out. We are just working on one more piece of documentation, and that's, as you know, the board declared a emergency procurement last Wednesday. The final document that we're waiting for, and it's already been sent down to the governor's office, is for her to sign off that we have, in fact, declared the state of emergency for procurement by the board, and the superintendent has acknowledged that. And once we get that signature back from the governor, we should have, purchase orders are just waiting. Well, they're just waiting for that one final signature, and we should be able to push those out tomorrow so we can get the supplies and materials to the schools, especially these 18 schools, and their adopting agencies or departments will be able to get to work with them.
These would be all the materials and supplies needed for completed repairs of these 18 schools?
As much as we can. And you know, these projects are all, every school has a different project, a different listing of needs and supplies.
When you say as much as we can, do you mean as much as can be anticipated or as much as the money allows?
Both. We're working at giving the threshold for the amount of money we can spend for each school. Because of this declaration, there's no limit. The only limitation is how much money do we have. And initially, there's no limit to the amount of money that can be. It's an emergency procurement, yes.
So the $250,000 is not.
It does not apply in this case. That's why we're needing that signature from the governor to authorize us to go above that.
And so what is the ballpark, what is the total cost of these purchases?
I know he can probably speak on that, but I know he's set a figure to adequately complete each school, and is $1 million.
Yeah, we had targeted that at the $1 million level, somewhat much lower. There's a couple that might be higher.
1 million for each, give or take. the
Yes, correct.
compensation.
That's
20 million bucks.
Is that the schools that are still awaiting inspection? Is that every school that we have about 1 million that we're trying to go out for?
Those that are awaiting
the
work and
awaiting-
inspection.
Awaiting inspection.
Polly?
Suba with Glimpses Media, materials, are you finding challenges finding any sort of materials for any of these projects on island?
Well, Polly, that's why it's not a specific list to a specific vendor. It's a list that's open to the vendor and supply us what you have. And so every vendor is going to get the same amount of money and the same scope of what supplies we need. And our people that are authorized to go out there and get these supplies and equipment, they can pick and choose from, no matter how many vendors there are.
Superintendent, are your project managers able to find everything that they need to finish these projects at your schools?
To-
Or are you finding any materials that aren't on island that's gonna hold up the project?
That depends, and it depends on what's incoming to the vendors and what they have in their inventory. Historically, within the last few months, we've had challenges at times to get paint, exterior paint. We've actually bought all of it, sometimes ceiling tiles, sometimes floor tiles, and sometimes marine plywood. That's where we use plywood in the school, we have to use, because of the wet environment, we have to use marine plywood. Right now, those things are available.
And is public health willing to allow, because I've heard of that certain paint needs to be on walls. Are you getting any advice from public health as to how to move forward with getting a specific paint on the wall so you don't get any demerits?
No,
go
that
ahead.
hasn't really been a problem.
Okay.
The availability, and usually the issue is the color of the paint.
Yeah.
And so if it's a dark color, it has to be sealed so that it can be easily cleaned. And that's the issue, not what type of paint. Of course, we don't put lead-based paints anywhere.
Sure.
You know, so that's not even in the market.
So the bottom line is that it actually just has to be light colored paint. So we see what's on the wall if there's something
Plenty of
on.
light colored paint then on island.
At this point, yes.
Yes. And then, we came through that situation, I believe it's at Agda Johnson, where one of the art classes, it's an art class. And so one of the walls was painted a mural, and the kids all joined and put their talent into there. And so it came out different colors, dark, light, and everything. And so it almost became an issue because they wanted Agda Johnson to repaint that wall. And, it's the pride of the kids. It's what we teach them. It's art. And so we had to at least, work with public health and say, listen, this is a work of art by the students. This is their pride. Can't we just not allow them to go ahead and have that wall? And if it needs to be wiped down every week, we'll wipe down every week, And so they gave into this. They gave us the variance for that. So
Are you
we're
guys
happy.
running into issues where you just look at public health inspectors and you think that some of the things that they're doing is being nitpicky or even silly?
Before,
Not now.
but not now. They are actually, like I mentioned yesterday, they're very, very, very accommodating and very cooperative. And they know that all our goals, all of us together, is to get the kids back into school. And so if you see a certain thing that does not affect the learning environment or the health environment for that kid, they'll say, hey, Mr. Superintendent, just fix that. If you fix it and we come back in 2 days, 3 days, and it's gone and fixed, you won't be dinged for that. So they're very cooperative. And they know that, Troy, we call some of these things cosmetic, right? But when it comes to the fact that it's going to affect the safety or the health of the students, not I, not the superintendent, I don't think anybody in GDOE would even ask a variance for that. And I also like to add that even though the superintendent be told in this past 2 weeks in a previous law, is it 37-4, that he has the authority to open schools even if they were not inspected. The superintendent has been very clear. He will not open any school that has not been inspected and passed. And as a board, we support that because ultimately it is the safety and the sanitary conditions of the schools that we're working for. And we're not going to deviate from that, and we're not going to let anybody take liability for something that we just allowed because we wanted to allow it, because we wanted to open the school.
What's the preventative, I'm so sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, Fred. When we declared the state of emergency, I think Dr. Okada had mentioned that the emergency procurement is especially needed for Southern High School and Inarajan Middle School, I believe. What's the situation with those two schools and what kind of work? I think those are the two that were waiting the final refurb contract, and those were also bundled in with the toilets, the restrooms were across the district. How are we tackling, those are kind of two different problems, but how are we dealing with those separate issues? Are those going through the emergency procurement to shore up?
Well, those it's actually Inarajan.
Inarajan
Middle School and Southern High. They were already on track to be refurbished in a prior requisition, and the amount is in fact over what can the superintendent approve it. It had to go to the AG's office. So those were already in the system since I believe it was April. This emergency declaration that the board did last Wednesday included those two schools because we didn't want them to be held behind in case there was need for more money to be spent for those schools. But as far as them being on the list to be also re-inspected and hopefully passed, that will be done when the refurbishment is fairly completed.
So the emergency procurement is just supplemental to the work that we needed those
It's,
two
no, well, actually, there were elements in the contract that did not pass muster with the AG. We can take that element out and use this emergency opportunity to put those projects through. It still has to be reviewed. And then we also have already got the funds approved for that in our ARP budget. So we can still do it, but we have to go a little bit around a different path to do it. Otherwise, we would have to start over. No, the bathrooms part is fine in both the contracts. One had to do with canopies and the other one was with electrical. So we still have to fix those things, but we need to do a separate procurement for that.
What's the preventative maintenance plan once these tens of millions in repairs are done?
I know where I want to go with it, and we have to look at legislation because there are several years back the decisions were made at the legislative level to outsource. I think that a better way to do that is to have custodial staff on site that have ownership of the school because they can do minor maintenance all the time. And if you go into school systems that do that, having a custodial staff that's actually one of our folks that actually feel a relationship to the school and they feel like they belong there and the kids are their kids, that's a stronger, more powerful way to do it. And also, usually in that environment, this is another piece that's important to consider is you might have one person on duty during the day, but in the evening there's 2 or 3, or in a big school, maybe 5. But they're there working, cleaning until 11 or so at night. So you've got an extra security force as well. And obviously that's been an issue in several parts of our island community.
Thank you for bringing that up because that leads to my next question. Chris Barnett said that tomorrow during the budget session, he's going to be introducing an amendment to the budget to appropriate $10 million in excess revenues from this fiscal year to DOE specifically for maintenance. And my understanding is that this is a commitment, an annual commitment of $10 million. Do you have any idea how that is able to, how much that will be able to help you guys?
That would be a huge help because historically we have had no maintenance budget.
And that also would allow us to, as a board, work with the superintendent and his deputies to come up with a plan. Is it better to contract all these maintenance, to outsource it, or is it better to just bring it into GDOE and we have a Facilities and Maintenance Division right now, but is it better that we augment what we have now? I remember back in the day, and I'm not going to age myself, but we had janitors in our school. And I remember when he rides a bike to school every day. He's an elderly man, but he kept our school clean. He had that mop, he had that bucket, and he mopped the rooms every day and sweep and all that. Should we go back to those days? Maybe we should. Maybe we should have janitors. And I think we should have janitors in all our schools. Because like the superintendent says, it's also a security measure.
So you agree with the superintendent?
Yes, I agree. And part of that plan is, we're also looking at the security. We have budgeted in this new fiscal year, what is it, a couple of $1 million
$2 million on budget on
to
that.
get going with providing security alarms, security cameras, security personnel, so that we try to cut down on the things that are happening in our schools today. I mean, even the neighborhoods around the schools, they come to us and say, why don't you install a camera? I mean, an alarm, so that when we hear it go on, we know that there's something happening in the school. And we're going to go there. And we're going to see who's going over the fence or who's, doing something. And even if it's a dog passing by and the alarm goes on, at least they come, right, and find out who's there and what are they doing. And so, yes, we're happy that he's including that into the proposal for GDOE. Anything that helps us to resolve these issues that we currently have today in our schools, we welcome it, and I'm sure the superintendent does as well.
And then also, speaking on infrastructure of the actual campuses, because you talked about it a number of times on the record, Superintendent, that schools have been neglected for 20-plus years. And so if you're talking about bringing in janitors and staff, but what about the infrastructure being sound? Are there any more schools?
Well, that's why in this daily inspection by
Like Washington High School, for example.
right, and that's why during these inspections that come up with public health, they alert us to these kind of things. And we're also going to work with the Department of Public Works. They were actually at GW yesterday to assess that building. Yesterday I got word that some of these temporary classrooms that are still existing in some of our campuses, like Finnegan, and these mobile homes that are there, basically all of them have to be torn down.
Because Superintendent has talked about early on when he came on board about decommissioning schools. And so I'm wondering, when are we going to get back to that too? If we're talking about refurbishing some of these schools, will you deem that these schools can't even be refurbished, and have you identified those schools yet? Or at least flagged them?
We have, based on enrollment, I have a tentative list, and my plan was to bring that to the board in the October-November timeframe to begin going through that and make decisions about that. But obviously, in the near term, we have to solve this issue, get our schools open and all our kids in school. Then we can go back and we can revisit some of that. But we have facilities. Basically, most of our facilities are architecturally sound from an engineering point of view. However, the maintenance issues have to be addressed. To answer the questions about now, if we can get, and I hope that the senator is successful with getting a regular amount of money, because I've been asking for that in multiple open sessions too, a fenced amount of money for facilities maintenance and repair every year, that's what we can use it for. We can start going through and making bigger renovations, and we look at other campuses and say, it doesn't meet our needs anymore. The solution might be demolish it and replace it, or close it. I mean, those are all decisions we have to make, and it's going to take a lot of community engagement in that process as well, because we're not just going to arbitrarily do that from this level and say, that's it. We have to work with the communities.
Mr. Sablan, would I be correct if, by saying that if the appropriation goes through, this would be the first multi-million-dollar standalone appropriation for GDOE maintenance since Gutierrez administration?
That would be correct.
That would
Yes,
be correct.
yes. And I'm just on the side here because I wear another hat as a DPR director,
No, it's because
I'm
they're-
competing,
they've been
no,
around for a long
no, okay, but I'm just saying that that appropriation measure is competing with my appropriation measure where they're giving $5 million to DPR from the same source. But hey, it's all good. If it's gonna help our island, no matter who gets it, that's fine.
Could I go down the list of the 16 schools, not including the Marshall Sablon and the Single, right? And could you tell me whether it's light, moderate, or heavy repairs needed in each of these?
You're talking about the uninspected schools?
Uninspected schools, yeah.
Well, the superintendent can probably answer that.
Light, moderate, or heavy? If you're able to answer, please. J.M. Guerrero Elementary.
You have to understand the difference between maintenance and passing inspection. It's a huge difference.
Okay.
And I don't have that. We do have an engineering study that was done across the whole district by the Corps of Engineers. And that document's available online if you want to go in and get detailed information. The degree of each of these campuses in terms of, we put all 41 into the mix for the refurbishment contract. The bid that came back on that was 300% higher than what we had budgeted for. We had budgeted 80 million, it came back at 280 million. And that would be a fair estimate to do a good job that would not necessarily completely refurbish a school. To go in, and we have campuses that are built back in the 50s, and to go in and upgrade the technology for plumbing, electrical, heating and air conditioning, climate control, all of that, the cost of doing that in a remodel vice the cost of building new construction, sometimes that far outweighs the price of demolition and just starting over. And so that has to really be a case-by-case study to see. And then also, what's different about school and how it happens now in the 21st century is how it happened in the 1950s. I was in elementary school in the 1950s. I remember it, and we had desks that bolted to the floor. Now we do things quite a bit differently. And the principal's office was down the hall. That's where you're going to get in trouble. I was there so much I decided to become one. But I mean, it's just a different time, a different place, and what's current and future looking in school design is way different than what we have here. It's way different than what DODEA has. And what they had was what the future look was 25 years ago. And that's those schools here.
One of the concerns from stakeholders of Bukadu and FPLG is Bukadu is a fairly new school, and how is it not opening this Thursday?
It has a number of things that need to be repaired that have worn out. The school's 20 years old.
Bukadu High School?
Yeah, the building.
Okay.
The building is 20 years old. And we're working through the issues with the air conditioning on it right now, and most of the air conditioning, notwithstanding Mawar, is at the point where you would normally replace it anyway. So we're having to find extra funding to get that up and running so that we have, because it's not a building that's, the older schools, if you took the plexiglass out of the window frames, you could open the louvers and you get fresh air through the school. You can't do that in the new one. You actually have to have managed ventilation and air conditioning. And a lot of the systems in that school are down. Now we've in this emergency process, we have put, because we're going to own those buildings anyway, because the lease is almost expired, I can spend money on those, and we're doing that in a way that we're going to go through and have an air conditioning contractor evaluate every unit, all 90 of them on that building, and either service them and reset them or replace them, because it's time to do that, and it's the natural cycle of, machines wear out, and sometimes I've seen here on Guam, when you put it in all nice and new and it's still bright and shiny, that's one thing, but if you don't provide for the maintenance down the road, you end up having to spend more than you would if you maintained it. So that's how we're going to address that particular campus. But we want to get enough air conditioning operational. That's why we're bringing a contractor in to do that work, to get it on so that we can pass inspection and those kids can be back in school. They're going to be in school anyway, but they'll be online. But we want them physically on campus.
Well, FPLG is a middle school, and so you had stated that you only want high schools to be
Well,
online.
our middle school principals got together and really said, you know what, we'd rather go online. We know how to do it. And that was an option because we were talking about finding an alternating location because we did that last year. And so we have experience about what worked in that environment and what would work better for the kids. And to a person, those principals opted for taking their kids online.
So you've already identified Kudu and FPLG is online?
They are to start until we get that building passed.
Dr. Swanson, there was a tentative schedule that you guys had showed the legislature back in July, and some of those schools, I think GW and Southern High, were way out on the end. They weren't going to get inspected till April. What does that timeline look like now? When is the sort of the end where we're going to start seeing the last schools clearing the...
We have to get all of this done by the end of September
it's
because I have to, because of what didn't happen in the legislature.
Right.
We have to certify and inspect all the schools. And our high school principals have a little bit of luxury here where they have more physical capacity in terms of space for the number of kids that are enrolled. So they're absolutely sure that they can restrict how much of the campus they're going to use, cordon off the rest of it, and operate. And then we have to inspect that part. And so that's going to be in the cycle of inspection that happens. And as soon as they're certified, they'll go back physically on site.
What didn't happen in the legislature? Can you clarify what is it that you wanted to happen?
Well, I've forgotten the number already. I've dumped it, 317. Had that passed, that would have continued my authority to open schools that we would examine and say, okay, they're safe to be here, but we haven't passed inspection yet. And what we were doing is we were working our way through that, and we had the schools that were up for refurbishment to be at the end, because the work project for the contractor's time to perform is 12 to 14 months. And it's not prudent to try to inspect the building while it's being renovated. So they were at the end because we knew that work was going to take several months to do, and then as soon as it was done, we would have them inspected. That was the plan. But because that authority was not granted in the legislature, then the next step is then they have to stand inspection now before they can reopen. Well, we'd already gotten 23 done. My projection was we would have had them all done had we been able to stay in the model we were using and have less disruption in the community as well, but that's not how it turned out. So here we are. We have a good plan to get this work done and get the inspections done. Public Health's working with us very well. We'll get the inspections completed. We have another round of re-inspections to do that are going to be by early October, because those are other schools that had already been certified.
The concern was that why was the request made to the legislature so far into the summer? And you had said on the record that you have requested for this bill earlier on. Who did you request that to earlier on and did not assist you in the legislature?
I don't know that I would say they did not assist me, but here's in several different settings I have said to, especially in our monthly meetings that we have to have in the legislature, that we are coming up to a point where I need more time to get this work done.
You've said in the oversight.
In the oversight hearings several times, and also in private conversations.
Before summer.
Right.
Okay, thank you for
But, you know, that,
Because the concern was for some students that did a peaceful protest was why wait to the very end for help when you knew that you needed the assistance even before summer started?
and the distance in time, and I can't remember the details of it because there's a lot of other moving parts in this, but the distance in time from when we went to another senator and said, you know, we really need to get this bill, just the distance time to make the determination whether or not it would even be heard. And then the hearing process was 2 weeks. I mean, when you look at it on one level in the calendar, it doesn't look like much, and then the other one is like, wow, we're burning a lot of time here. But this is where we are. My team has put together an excellent plan, and we're working with the governor's office and the folks from the other agencies to maximize the use of that manpower, and we'll get this done. At the same time, we have to make the plan for after this is done. And I'm really grateful that the message that we need to budget for this process is getting through, because it had not gotten through before. I can't find a budget that had a dedicated line item in it for maintenance and repair.
What do you think of that? What do you think of previous legislatures and governors who never did put in that line item for maintenance and repair, and how it's affected your work today and the work of your people?
I can't speak for them, and I would hesitate to do that. But I do think that when people think about K-12 education budgets, they think about how they experienced elementary and high school. They don't understand and understand all of the stuff under the layers that it takes to make an organization, whether it's a small school district like my last one, which is only 7,000 kids online and 2,000 in brick and mortar. People don't understand everything it takes to make that happen. And even our own system, and that's why I had everybody together at the UOG Fieldhouse, because I wanted them to see each other. They had never seen each other, and it's, whoa, there's a lot of us working on this project, and that was the hit in the forehead that I wanted everybody to have, so that they can get a sense of that. And now we're starting to get a lot better communication. We're getting a lot more direction and action on these problems. So that's part of it. And the other piece that I have to say here is that, and this is not a criticism, because our kids need nurse support. They need mental health support. But we have a huge public health and mental health mission that school districts in the states do not have. So when you look at our budget, you're not just paying for K-12 education. You're paying for public health, you're paying for mental health, and a huge other set of functions that we would otherwise coordinate with community agencies to do. So in my last district, the mental health folks, I gave them space in my school to do counseling and therapy, but they didn't work for me. They didn't come out of my budget. I just gave them, like 200 square feet of office space. We're in a situation here where, because of the way that the government has been designed over time, and I don't think it's a bad design, I just think we have to be cognizant how much it costs to do all of those things, and not just think it's about books and buildings.
But would you agree that that it was part of a bad design, that over the past 20 to 30 years, the government had not line item multi-millions for maintenance?
Well, as a superintendent, I would argue that, but not that's a weakness that should be overcome. But now I'm seeing movement because people are paying attention in the conversation that's going to take us to a better place here. So I'm really happy about that.
Well, looking at recent events with the governor requesting for a special session to introduce a bill where she would transfer authority over to her, would you have preferred that to where she can prioritize the school maintenance and the structures, and you as superintendent under her focus on the education of the students?
I've given that some thought. If I'm going to be the guy that gets the bullet, I want to have I want to have operational control of the whole thing.
And that's an issue that Paulie, that you bring up is, where is the board in all of this? But before I answer, I know that his question about maintenance, it's not that there's never been any money put into maintenance. It's never been identified as just for maintenance. It's buried in the contractual category, where the schools, the budgeting office, the procurement office, go out and contract these services, maintenance, janitorial,
But
air
it's
conditioning.
It's inadequate, you would agree.
Oh, very inadequate. We can see it now, like I told you yesterday. But if it says there every school shall have a janitor or 2 janitors, every school is going to have 20 mops and 50, rakes and 30 lawnmowers, then we can do. But when it's put under that category contractual, it's really just up to what the contractor is asked to do. And we've seen it's not adequate. We get one contractor to do all the schools on island. By the time he starts today here, by the time he gets to the last one, the grass in the first one has already grown what? Because he's not completed the 43 schools as he needs to do. Same with the air conditioning. A $10 million contract, over $10 million to one contractor to put all the air cons in all the schools. That's why we're at this stage. He can't do it. He can't humanly possibly be able to get to all those schools. But that's the way the scope of work was put out. That's the way the contract was put out. Can't blame the contractor. He just bid on what he was asked to bid on. But if we broke that down in contractual and northern, southern, central region, each one gets a different contractor, install the air cons. Each region gets a different contractor to cut the grass. Maybe we'll be talking about lack of maintenance right
But
now.
also the schedule is gonna stay the same, so you will have to do this every year.
Yes, yes.
Every year the schools will
Yes.
have to get inspected, and so I think the concern for a large part of the community is, how can we not have this situation anymore every school, beginning of the school year? And
Well, it's up to the superintendent.
will you
Divide your
ask the
contracts.
legislature to address the schedule of inspecting?
No, I don't think the legislature has to step in on that. It's just up to the school. You divide your contract so that it's easy to manage. You divide your work with public health, and he's already requested, I believe it's passed, that when you inspect a school today, August 13th, that by August 13th next year is your anniversary date. That's when you get inspected, not where June 30 everybody on Guam expires, including the schools. So I believe that has passed and changed.
We did get that
Clarify,
legislative change.
The schedule of inspecting is not a factor every year.
It has been,
Okay.
but we were successful and worked with the education chair, Senator Barnett. I asked him very specifically, if we can get the rules changed so that the inspection certificate expires on its anniversary of issue, that spreads the work out through the course of the whole year. And we got that through, and that's what we're under now. That's why the schools, there are only 6 being inspected now, because their certificates were all issued on the same date in August. So then we have 6 more coming up in October, and then after that, we have schools that just opened, or they're about to open, whose certification is only like 3 weeks old. Well, at Stumble Middle, it's a day old today. So that workload has been spread out. So we're going to be constantly doing this, but not in the emergency mode, just a normal course of maintenance and care for our schools.
Yeah. So in other words, you don't have 43 schools expiring on June 30th all at the same time. It's spread out throughout the year, and that's what's happening now.
When I first got here, the discussion, because I could remember sitting in the oversight hearing and listening to public health testify and our folks testify before I took office, because one of the remarks was, "What, he hasn't left yet?" But it's June 30th, all of these expire. Public health was saying there's no way we can inspect them all. We don't have the staff to do all of that and do all of our other work as well, because they've got a big job. And so that's taken us through where we are, and we've made a number of adjustments about how we're doing this business, and we're not giving up quality and safety. So that's the important part to remember. they're working with us and we're being able to meet their standards.
How many schools do we think are gonna fail come September?
0.
0?
That's not an option. Failure is not an option. Now, what we're doing is we have our maintenance folks with the inspection team. And as soon as they see something that needs attention, our guys are fixing it. Now, we're sending them through beforehand, so we're making sure that, as far as we can tell, we've got it under control. But at the same time, we go with them and they give it, and we're working together. They'll say, okay, we see this issue, we're going to be back tomorrow, and if you got it corrected, we're good. Or if you can do it right now, we're good. And that's working. And so, but our principals are already on notice that their folks in their schools, they're doing the local housekeeping stuff that's easy to do, that's within their normal reach. And if it needs something beyond that, where you need skilled labor to come and do it, then we have our maintenance folks do that. But the model we're using is working very well, but we keep that process going, and it's working to public health's benefit and to our benefit.
And the 8 refurbished schools that you said weren't gonna be ready previously, we think they're gonna be able to clear the bar?
What we are going to do, we were working with the contractor's Cortec, and they've been very, very cooperative to work with the principals and very thoughtful about what they're doing. So they're building a huge safety component into their work and their work plan, and they're coordinating the work plan. So like I said, our high schools especially have big campuses that you don't have to be on all of it. So we're shrinking our footprint so we can turn over real estate to the contractor and they can work. And then once they move out of a building, we can move into it and they can get the building we were in. So that's basically the model that's going to be followed through all of the campuses. So right now we have extra space in our schools, and it's a good thing because we can take advantage of that extra space and stay out of the contractor's way, pass the inspection, and get the work done. And then once it's all done, we'll re-inspect it to make sure that it's all up to speed.
We've had one last question. We've had a lot of parents and students come out. They've heard that they might be going online. They remember what that was like during the pandemic. They don't want to go back. They said it's impacted their learning. What do you say to those folks? How long are they going to be online if they do move there?
Our target is not to be online past the end of September.
And we mentioned that yesterday, that at least by
Yeah.
September 30th, we have
want
everybody
back
in a
in face-to-face.
brick and mortar school.
September 3rd?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at. You know, please don't say we lied if
Yeah,
September
and
30 comes around and it
They will
doesn't
all have been
happen.
inspected by then.
Whatever is humanly possible by September 30.
So
And we thank everybody
For
actually for their
example,
cooperation.
the elementary schools that will start next week that are going to be sharing a campus, as their home school is cleared, they're back on their own campus. So it might only be a week or two, depending on which school it is.
Yeah. The important thing to remember is, aside from JFK and Simon Sanchez and Okadu and J.B. Younger, there will be no double session in any other school.
Those schools are already in some sort of double session. correct?
Yep.
Well, there'll be an alternate day schedule. So not both campuses will be at the school at the same time. That's the double session. There'll be the school that's there will be there today. Another school will be there tomorrow that share the campus. But they won't be there together.
To clarify, JFK and Simon Sanchez.
They will remain in double session. We're looking at the end of this year to finally get something going for those kids, for both JFK and for Simon Sanchez, because it's only right that we try to separate them. For Okadu and J.B. Younger, as you know, we're refurbishing and repairing J.B. Younger now. We're looking at that to be completed by the end
Mid-year,
of, and so they'll be back into their own schools. So ultimately, hopefully this year, we'll be out of double sessions for everybody.
Are we still on track for a Christmas break to get Simon Sanchez out of JFK?
That's we're trying to give them as their
I'm working
Christmas
toward
gift.
that, and I'll have new information
Right.
in probably another week or so, but
And both options are still on the table?
still on the table. We have, the material is being finalized for the discussion with FEMA. Right now, obviously, the focus is get all the other schools open.
Right.
But the folks at the governor's office that are working with us on that project are on top of it. In fact, I just reviewed slides for a presentation to FEMA that they intend to do in another week.
Okay. And before we finish today's set, we have the acting deputy here, Dr. Adamus. If you want to say anything, Doc, to our people out there, you can come up here. You've been a very important part of this whole thing, so let them know what
I'll
the
let you have
teachers
the
are
hot
feeling.
seat here.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. With the information that was shared, basically our principals are excited in terms of being able to have instruction begin for our students.
I'll take it.
We're working feverishly with our facilities and maintenance team, our school readiness task force, so that we're able to get the supplies and equipment that the schools need. We're looking at having those items ready at the school sites, so when we have assistance coming from the government agencies deployed by the governor, they're not just standing around waiting for things to happen. They will have the scope of work that needs to be completed. They'll have the equipment, and they can just jump right on it and fix these things that are pending.
And Dr. Bobby,
Yes.
transportation, you've already communicated with DPW for bus schedules?
Yes.
How's that working out?
For DPW, they are aware of the 23 schools that are ready to open this Thursday. As for the plan with the elementary schools that are pairing up for the 22nd, our August 22nd opening, I'm meeting with the deputy director this Thursday. That's the soonest we can get a meeting, because they're looking over the plan, and they're looking at the feasibility of ensuring that one day they take the students, for example, to Maria Ujoa, and then the next day they have the students from Finnegadson alternating. So we're still fine tuning those details. Even the principals want to know specifically what happens on the alternating day when the school is online. Where will those teachers be? What are the requirements with those teachers? So we're trying to streamline everything so that there's less confusion, more teaching, and we got these two forces working hand in hand, and our goal is to get the schools open.
Extracurricular items like sports or after-school programs, are those on hold?
The problem is, if the school doesn't open, then we can't have any games at the site. So we're working with our ESA Board of Control and our athletic directors to try to get alternate sites for practices. They already had the game schedules set for the first quarter. Practices when they were supposed to start. We're already processing coach applications. And so we just have to meet to try to fine tune the schedule, try to have some semblance of getting on track so that, the kids get their first quarter sports going, right? Because that's part of what keeps them thriving in our school settings. So we want less interference or interruption, and just helping to find those alternate sites, like, for example, the the Dedido gym, Ganya Heights gym, if we can work it out where we can get practices there. And of course, we just tie in the communications with our mayors to assist.
And some students are concerned about their clubs. They can't begin to fundraise unless they're in the school.
That's correct, but we're also looking at, if they're not on campus, they can at least have their meetings on Zoom, for example, because they still need to go through the process of getting themselves chartered. So there's board policy, Guam law, that governs how we are to handle our non-appropriated funds. So it all, there's training that the students and the advisors have to go through so that they're properly handling the funds. It's all accounted for. So all of this can take place online, and then probably in September, they can begin their fundraising.
Lots of pieces to this whole
Lots of
puzzle.
pieces.
But let me tell you, every
what I was talking
every
about.
part is moving,
Yes.
and we're all just going to that core where we get back to normal and have a great school year. So we are all working together to make that happen. Today we added a school to open on Thursday. I don't know if I'll have any further information tomorrow in any other school, but at least tomorrow I can tell you what schools are actually being worked on because the departments are there and the supplies are there. And then an updated school schedule will be reviewed by the school board tomorrow, and then we'll release that tomorrow afternoon, the approved, updated school calendar.
Because Board right now is getting inspected as we speak?
Yes, they, we'll probably know by tomorrow. They're doing one more walkthrough, and we'll know.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the schools that just recently passed inspection. can
Just
they-
one today.
Right, but if there's any more added, plus that one, I think it's more just one, can they open on the 14th or no?
No, the 15th is the opening. Tomorrow's the 4th. I would say no because we've already said we're going to give them 24 hours due notice to make sure that all the people are all informed. So if there's a school that's approved tomorrow, I don't believe they will be opening on Thursday, maybe Friday, but not Thursday.
Yes? Yeah, I would like to thank everyone for coming over, and of course, are we gonna do briefing again tomorrow
Yes,
at 2
yes,
o'clock?
yes.
So there, last like, Vice Chair Sablan said, there's other aspect of education that we can update you with. So this concludes our media briefing today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc.